Good afternoon, everyone. As so well introduced, I'm here to talk to you about how we can use increased transparency of our production systems to build trust with the public in British farming. I want to start by saying that building trust is about our industry's reputation. It's not about marketing or selling more meat or milk tomorrow. This is about a long-term investment that can help ensure that we have a livestock sector to talk about several decades from now. In agriculture, we often talk about the urban-rural divide and the fact that city dwellers are so far removed from where their food comes from. The need to educate them, to bring them back to their countryside roots. I believe strongly that we can reconnect these worlds. But as I started my career, I often heard confrontational, defensive language when it came to the consumer, and sometimes sat with farmers at their kitchen tables who were nearly in tears because they felt that the world hated them. The prevailing narrative in retail spaces and entertainment is that of bucolic scenes of scruffy, romantically scruffy farmers and livestock knee-deep in meadow grass. Sometimes that is true. That is the reality of where our food comes from. But as that system intensifies, the gap between expectation and reality grows ever wider. Food brands and retailers, who are often people's only connection to their food, seem not to want to admit that most food on the shelves comes from intensive systems and perhaps are unwittingly driving more of a wedge into this divide. Meanwhile, my townie friends and family, they love talking about their food. They love asking questions about where it comes from and how animals are raised to create it. They want to understand so that they can weigh up the options and take things into consideration to make the best decisions for their circumstances. And without addressing these issues, there's not much that we can do to lessen the gap between food producers and the public. And I knew that there were people around the world that were doing work in this space, so I wanted to set out and see what they were doing, how they were doing it, and learn from their experiences. I first went to Canada and the USA, where they're experiencing similar issues around trust in their food system as their populations become less agrarian, but they seemed less bashful about intensive farming methods. Next, I was off to Australia, where social license to operate was better understood and actions to address it were being implemented in the long-term strategy of some sectors. And when I learned that Danish Crown has welcomed 250,000 visitors into one of their largest abattoirs, I quickly added Denmark to the list before I took off on a brief tour around Great Britain, speaking to farmers who were putting their heads above the parapet here on home soil. Along the way, I met with farmers, industry groups, communications experts, journalists, entrepreneurs, and researchers, from international corporations all the way down to smallholders farming 10 acres. I went to fairs, food markets, visitor centers. I stayed with strangers, lived in an RV with my mom, and I took a train from one side of the US to the other. And along the way, I learned an incredible amount of knowledge. And I can't possibly fit that all into this one presentation, but I'm going to do my best to give you the highlights. One of the first conversations I had on this journey really brought the somber, stark reality of the position livestock agriculture holds in today's world. Public interest is growing in where people's food comes from, and so are their concerns about the impacts that these systems have. So are there concerns about the impacts of the systems in which we raise our livestock. There are standard practices like cow-calf separation that they will likely never be okay with. People don't want to feel badly about the food that they eat, and many are already looking for alternatives. Shoppers now have choices that previous generations did not. They have nut milk, they have tofu burgers, and they have jackfruit. And those products, the popularity of these products so far has been limited by price, taste, and texture. But they're here to stay. And with time, they will get better and they will get more affordable. Additionally, cultured or lab-grown meat and milk is coming down the line, and they're likely to bring the taste and price point that plant-based options lack. But most pointedly, what these products bring is a diet that's relatively free of guilt for many people. And that means that if all of agriculture doesn't take action to build trust with consumers, these products might do more than threaten our market share. They might obliterate it. But before we do anything, we first need to understand who we're talking to. And I think that's something that some of us have maybe not gotten quite right in the past. On the screens, you can see a basic bell curve. This represents the spectrum of support for animal agriculture. At the far left, we have the extreme anti-livestock brigades. So these are your activist groups and some NGOs. On the left, you have people who believe strongly in animal agriculture and are enthusiastic supporters of animal products. We don't want to spend our energy and resources on this group on the right because that's preaching to the converted. And we also don't want to keep our focus on the left, although we don't want to ignore them. Oh, I lost my, so sorry. We're unlikely to change hearts and minds, so we'll just leave them to that. Where we're going to focus our efforts is here, in the middle, the movable middle. They represent the majority of the public, around 65% of the population. They don't have strong opinions about animal agriculture, but they can be persuaded one way or another. If we focus our efforts here, we can hope to nudge them just a little bit further to the right. So how do we do that? In the past, a lot of industry engagement and communication has been driven by the idea that all we need to do is give people more information, give them more facts, give them the science. If only they understood us better, then they can trust us and they'll understand that we're right. But it's more and more apparent that this approach, it's not getting us anywhere after decades and decades of trying. The Center for Food Integrity is a US-based not-for-profit organization that's dedicated to building trust in the food system. Their peer-reviewed research and years of work since confirms that values are 3 to 5 times more powerful than facts and science alone when it comes to building trust. In other words, we need to show that when it comes to the things that the public cares about, like animal welfare, the environment, and food safety, we share our values and care about the same things that they do. Embracing this approach allows us to find common ground, of which there's more than we think, and engage more effectively on these more difficult topics. We all have a unique perspective, and that means that the challenge is that we're all right. And values can be our lifeboat when it comes to these conversations. And no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. I was lucky enough to visit several businesses and organizations that have invested time, effort, and money into creating transparency and enjoying a wide range of benefits while doing so. And here are just a few. Danish Crown has built viewing areas into their Horsens abattoir, and every inch of the process, from when the pigs climb off the trucks to when they're put into the packaging, is visible from these windows. And just in case you might miss something, there's large screen TVs and high-definition on-demand video that shows you every step of the process up close and personal. This has helped them build stronger relationship with their customers, add value to their products, and has helped them own their story in the press. Mudshoot Farms is a working farm and a community charity on 32 acres in the shadow of Canary Wharf in East London. They welcome tens of thousands of visitors through their gates, people wanting to see farm animals and connect with them personally. And that includes some of the city's poorest, most diverse communities who are often hardest for us to reach. Purdue Farms is one of the USA's largest poultry processors with an annual revenue of more than $8 billion US. Building public trust through transparency is one of 4 pillars of their animal care vision, and they've helped several of their farmers build learning centers and viewing areas across the country. Their efforts across these pillars have even earned them public support of animal rights group Mercy for Animals, who were previously one of their loudest critics. The Iowa State Fair welcomes more than 1 million people through their gates in a span of about 11 days. And one of their most beloved features is the Animal Learning Center, where visitors can get up close and personal with livestock, but this is no petting zoo. The animals are housed as they would in a commercial farm setting, including sow gestation crates, calf hutches, and battery cages. There are also several large-scale producers that are bringing the public through the gates themselves, both in person and online. I visited Culk Farms in Alberta, where they were, just as they were preparing to welcome 1,000 people into the farm, where they finished 18,000 head of cattle. Derek Josie is a dairy farmer with more than 1 million followers across his social media empire, which he began after when he felt like the dairy industry was not doing enough to tell the industry's story. So he decided to do it himself. And a little closer to home, the Ward family in Lincolnshire have been hosting public tours on their farms for years. And recently, they've built viewing areas into their facilities to allow them to welcome even more school children and local community members. But perhaps one of my favorite experiences of this whole process was sitting in and participating in Meat and Livestock Australia's ambassador training program in Sydney. This 2.5-day event saw 16 people from across the supply chain come together to learn how they could help the red meat industry protect its license to operate and build trust even in their own businesses. Farmers, journalists, chefs, and catering executives, and everyone in between were given a master class on consumer and public perceptions research, social media, personal branding, and essentially values-based communication strategies based on research from the Center for Food Integrity. Over the course of the program, I witnessed individuals become more confident and feel more at ease with the idea of engaging with the public, and they were filled with enthusiasm for how they could start at the end of the program. Throughout my travels, big surprise, there was no silver bullet approach to solving this problem. There was no one way of building trust with the public. But what I did come to understand is that success comes from a multitude of approaches involving every member of the supply chain. And perhaps more pointedly, what it is going to take is a mindset shift. We need to bring the public in. We need to meet people where they already are and embed a culture of transparency and openness into our industry. The best part is the benefits of this approach don't stop with building trust. I came across several examples of how engagement and transparency are adding value to products, contributing to improved mental health of farmers, and also reconnecting rural communities and building social capital, all things that we've already discussed in previous sessions today. And if you guys remember the scenario that I laid out just a few minutes ago, I don't think that this is the future that any of us want for our livestock sectors. But the best part is that we don't have to do this perfectly to keep that from happening. We just have to make a start. And I believe that a combination of these 5 recommendations will get us off to that pretty well. First, we need a dedication to authenticity and honesty by taking a warts and all approach to food production. And warts and all sounds like a scary term. That means really owning everything that we do. But it's really important to this being a success, and it's really important to take into consideration. We also need to focus on trust as a metric when we're dealing with consumer perceptions research and devoting resources to understanding and listening to them. We also should commit to a values-based communication strategy when engaging with the public and abandon this idea that we must educate them. We also need, as an industry, to support those individuals and organizations who do put their heads above the parapet and take this for the team. We need to provide them with skills and with training so that they can do it to the best of their ability, and we need to be there to support them in case things don't go quite to plan. And last but not least, the leadership that's needed for such a commitment to doing things differently requires courage. But we can't afford to shy away from this situation. We have to be brave, and we have to be prepared to push ourselves outside of our comfort zone to make it happen. When I started this journey, I couldn't begin to imagine how this would impact me. Becoming a Nuffield Scholar has grown my confidence, allowed me to create relationships with some of the most amazing people, and helped me see myself in a totally different light. I want to thank the Nuffield Farming Scholarships Trust, AHTB, and the Dartington Cattle Breeders Trust for entrusting me with this opportunity and supporting me along the way. I'm also incredibly grateful to my colleagues, my friends, and my family who sometimes even housed, fed, and supported me on this journey. To my mom, who flew here from Indiana to be here today, and to my husband, Ben, who's reminded me constantly that I can, in fact, do this. And last but not least, I want to say thank you to each and every single person who shared their time and their knowledge with me. I couldn't have done this without any of you. Thank you.